Scott Brown here. Whenever I'm starting a new job on a Sunday night, I sit there and I ask myself, what on earth am I going to take to work tomorrow? As a carpenter, I have a lot of tools, but I can't take all of them to work. So in this episode, we're going to go over 3 levels of tools that you need to take to work as a carpenter. From apprentices to the self-employed to the specialist carpenter. This should be relevant for everybody. Let's start with the basics. The tools that pretty much every carpenter needs. Whether you're an apprentice or a qualified carpenter, if you're on the tools, you're going to take these things to work. I'll start with PPE, a raincoat, hat, that kind of thing, glasses, earmuffs, mask, safety boots, all the essentials. You're going to take that to work every day. Doesn't matter what level you're at. As an apprentice in New Zealand, I think you need a level like this. This is a 1.2 meter level, which I think is a good all-round size. It's not too long, not too short. You can do most things with it. And then you need these tools. So the drill, the impact driver, and then the circular saw. You could argue a hand saw, but more and more we're just using circular saws. And you'll also notice that these are all the same battery platform. I have every battery platform under the sun because of the YouTube channel, but I don't recommend that. It's very annoying. So just stick with one battery platform. This is Makita 40 volt. And of course with those drills you need things like drill bits. Like in New Zealand we use a square bit and a Phillips bit the most. With a drill we put different diameter drill bits to drill holes. That's why you have the 2 drills, by the way. That drills the holes, that puts the fixing in it. The tool belt. This is the Occidental 7-bag framer. These are the essential things that I have in my tool belt. Tape measure, 5.5 meter is a good little all-round size. The hammer I use is the Vaughan Deluge, almost impossible to find these days, so don't think I can recommend it. Stanley knife, marker pen. This is a Pika narrow fit pen. Medium-sized square, speed square. For bigger things like cutting 4x2, 6x2. Pencil, I like a classic carpenter's pencil. Folding ruler, I always go for the Euro style 2 meter rulers. Nail bar, this one's on the ground, but it's also a nail punch and a nail bar. Like most tools that do 2 things, it doesn't work quite as well as a nail punch and a nail bar separately, but it's a nice little pocket-sized tool. Crayon for rough marking. This is good when you're working on rough sawn timber and framing. The Nipex. This is great for pulling out little nails when your nail bar won't get them. Gloves, the other PPE item. And I usually have this little square for those hard to reach areas, and that lives in the shoulder straps that I also highly recommend. I almost forgot. The wee ruler. The pickup, I'll show you. This is great for those finer measurements where the tape measure is a bit too cumbersome. But it also helps me with the chisels. So this is my fancy chisel set. Now you don't need a fancy chisel set for a basic carpentry kit. This one here is overkill. I bought these in Tokyo and I've got a video about that if you want to check that out. But what I would recommend is 3 sized chisels, and they don't have to be flashy Japanese chisels. These 3 are probably a good place to start. This is a 6mm, this is a 12mm, and this is a 30mm. You're probably just going to be doing door locks and hinges as a carpenter. And this is great for door locks because you can do the latch. And this is good for clearing out the finer details of a mortise. And this is good if you need to clear a lot of timber at once. I stress that you don't need to get all fancy. You can just get a Irwin's chisel set, something that's available at your local merchant. It doesn't have to be from a flash boutique Japanese tool store. And of course you need something to hit them with. This is like a little Japanese hammer, or maybe a wooden mallet. Something that will prolong the life of the tool. Don't smash it with your big framing hammer. So that was for most carpenters, apprentices, builders alike. But this next category is probably the largest category, and it's for the self-employed or people who are working on the building site by themselves. What you need when you've got no one else to borrow tools from. Starting with the job site table saw. Ah. The table saw is great when the circular saw is too cumbersome for the thing you're ripping. If you're ripping a skinny piece of timber like that, you're not going to do it with a circular saw, you're going to do it with that. And the other big thing that I take when I'm working by myself is the drop saw. In this case, it's the Makita 40 volt 216 millimeter drop saw. It's really good because it's like 16 kilograms and it can do most cuts you need to do. And you need something to put those things on too. So this is the miter saw stand. And then the table saw stand. Wow. Okay, now cords are annoying, but despite that, I still prefer a corded vacuum cleaner. There's nothing against the Makita ones that I have. They're good vacuum cleaners, but they're not as powerful as a corded one. You have to have so many batteries on charge just to keep the tool going. And that's on top of having all these other battery tools that you need batteries for as well. So I prefer the corded. And now there are ways where you can activate the corded vacuum despite the fact that you're using a cordless saw. And yeah, you plug it in, it lasts forever. You're not moving it around the site too much anyway. Corded vacuum cleaner. You often have to make a temporary table, so some sort of folding trestle is a good idea. These are the ones I've always used. They've got metal legs, so they're very strong, and they fold out and they fit nicely in here when they're folded up. I actually made these cutouts in my van, particularly for those. Yeah. Oh, and the next tool I almost added to the basic apprentice part of the video, but I think it's more a self-employed tool. The framing nailer. In New Zealand, everybody uses framing nailers. We build houses with it, we renovate houses with it. The most popular one would be a pass load, but I much prefer the battery-only nail guns because you don't have to buy the gas. And when you're self-employed, you have to pay for the gas. So I prefer the Hikoki framing nailer, that's my favorite one. But the Milwaukee one's great, and there's a few new ones coming out which I'll be doing videos about. And the other essential tool is the finishing nailer. And again, I prefer the Hikoki out of all the options out there. Look how small it is, and that's battery only. They're getting smaller and smaller, and lighter, thankfully. Now I know we've already got a level in there, but these are sizes that are very handy, and I think a lot of builders should have them. Number one is the 1.8. That is arguably more useful than the 1.2 level. These are all Stabila levels, by the way. And this is a 2.4. This one is surprisingly handy. If you're straightening out a wall in an old house, this lets you get from the top plate to the bottom plate, and then you can sort out the wonky stud in between. It's useful for many other things as well. Yeah, here are some more of the tools that we need as carpenters. I told you carpenters need a lot of tools, right? So we have the electric planer, battery-powered electric planer. This is the 40 volt one. This is pretty essential. We use these all the time when we're building timber framed houses. And then we have something that you might not use that often. A typical carpenter might use this a few times a year. If you're doing a lot of concrete work, you might use it every week. This is a masonry hammer drill for drilling holes, putting bolts in. Very essential thing to have if you're self-employed as a carpenter. A carpentry must-have, the reciprocating saw. Another Makita 40 volt one. You put a long blade in here and you can cut through just about anything. This is how we demolish houses. And next, the multi-tool. Another renovation must-have. And I tell you what, I am running out of square spaces to put it in. Speaking of tools for self-employed carpenters, a very important tool if you're trying to get business is a website. And stick around to the end of this ad and I'll be able to give you a discount off your first website. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform where you can build your online presence and run your business. It's the website platform that we use and I highly recommend it. They make building a website easy. If you have a bunch of images of the work that you've done and you don't know any coding, that's fine because they have portfolios and galleries that allow you to just drag and drop your imagery into it. Squarespace take care of the rest. And they also have templates that will make your website look very professional, so you really don't need to know any coding at all. And if you're setting up a website for the first time and you want a custom domain name that represents your company, you can do all of that inside Squarespace with their custom domain names. They also have domain transfer if you already have a custom domain. Squarespace have so many features, I couldn't possibly mention them all here, so you might as well try it out for yourself. And thankfully, they offer a free trial, which makes that super easy. But when you're ready to launch your own website, make sure you go to squarespace.com/Scott Brown Carpentry, and then you can save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. All right, back to the tools for self-employed carpenters. All right, multi-tool and the blower. Honestly, this is fantastic, and you might only use it for one thing: cleaning up a drop saw at the end of the day. Drop saws get dust all over them, especially if the dust extraction isn't working too well. And just blowing it all off at the end of the day before you put it in your van, highly satisfying. It's handy for other things too, but it's worth it for that one thing alone. Now we're getting into the category of a lot of small things. There's a lot of things that I won't go into detail about. We've got a sander, we've got a chalk line here, we've got a socket set. You know, there's so many little things that you need as a builder, and I can't possibly cover all of them. Angle grinder, there's so many. A hole saw kit is pretty essential, especially if you're doing locks and things like that. Crowbar, renovations, very essential. Carpenter's square, this is a Japanese style carpenter's square, nice and thin, and you can actually get tool belt accessories that allow you to hang this off your tool belt. The essential tool if you're working by yourself, clamps. It's like extra pairs of hands. And then a tool that I actually use quite often on building sites here in New Zealand, the jigsaw. Don't know if I recommend this particular jigsaw. I'm not a fan of the button system here. It's not satisfying to click. Call me shallow, but I care about that kind of thing. But a jigsaw is pretty useful on a building site. And now, the final category. Specialty tools. Now what I mean by specialty is, you could probably do the job without these tools, but these tools are going to make the job way easier, way more efficient, quicker. Number one, laser level. Yes, you can get a chalk line, ping a line on the ground, grab a stick level, and build a wall that way. But with a laser level, you're going to do it a lot more efficiently. You just put this on the ground to your marks, and then you build the whole wall to it. You can build ceilings with a laser level. You can do a lot of things with a laser level, so I always have one when I'm renovating and building houses. Track saw. Anyone who's been watching my channel for a while will know that this is one of my favorites. The track saw. You can do a lot of things with your circular saw that a track saw does, but this will do it in a more efficient, cleaner way. If you're doing a lot of ply work, if you're doing a lot of cabinetry, if you're trying to get a factory straight cut on site, there are few tools that are better than a track saw. I know this is kind of ridiculous. A stapler is a specialty tool, but this one's battery powered. It's actually quite surprising how useful a battery powered stapler is. It takes away the fatigue. You don't have to clamp and staple every time. You just pull the trigger and then bump it like that. And the final specialty tool, the Viking arm. I know it just looks like a clamp, but it's a little bit more than that. It's a spreader clamp. So it's nice and thin, right? Which means you can get it in really tight gaps. So I'll give you an example. If you're putting in a window, you put the window in the framing opening, you've got a gap all the way around, and you want to adjust the position of that window. You just slide that in the gap, and then you start going like that. And it will slide the window over. It's just very, very handy. I recently helped one of my friends on their house, and they were installing a post and putting a window in and stuff. And I brought this with me. Anyway, there was a builder there already, and he ended up doing most of the work. And they used my clamp to adjust the post, because you could put the post in, put the clamp under it, and then lift it up and lock it in place. I actually ended up leaving them to it, and I left the clamp with them because it was more useful than I was. So the Viking arm clamp, yes, it's very expensive, but I think it's worth it. So those are the 3 levels of tools that I like to take to a building site. What are the tools that you always take to work, whether you're an apprentice, a qualified carpenter, or a specialist? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. I'm off to site. I'm actually working here on my house. You're doing a great job.
So, you got it?
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah.
Lower it, slowly. There you go.